very excited to do the show because like, I don't know about the rest of you, but I've been trapped in my house for a year, and in some places in my house there's loads and loads and loads of these blocks made up of bits of paper put together, and I've totally forgotten what they're for. It's so long since I've looked at any of them. I'm like, is this structural? Do these hold this wall up? How do they? But it turns out, viewers out there in the world, these are things called books. We used to know what they were, but we've forgotten because we've so long since society functioned that, like, a post-apocalyptic piece of fiction, not a book, a film. We know what films are because we watch the same one over and over again to try and feel like something in life makes sense. Like post-apocalyptic fiction, society has collapsed and we're surrounded by these weird objects that used to make sense. But here I've found just 4 incredible archaeologists who have dug into the past, into the memories of humanity, and they found out what these little stacks of paper for. They're not for burning. Don't think they're for burning. You can't eat them. Post-apocalyptic Britain, you can't eat them. In fact, they are books, and we're going to find out more about what books are with our incredible lineup of wonderful book experts. But before we do that, we're going to find out about Wales and numbers, and we're going to do that by flying over to our good friend Sarah Jones, who was on the email with the list of links, and just checking that in the background, and we're going to find out how things are. So Sarah Jones, how are things where you are? You having fun?
Well, I mean, evidently I can't find emails anymore, so I think it's clear that I am crashing and burning.
I love the fact you've set your microphone up so it looks like a robot is threatening you or handing you a robot ice cream.
I think threatening is more on brand.
It's a metal ice cream. Amazing. Good. So Sarah Jones will be our scorer tonight. Jones the Maths. The Welsh, as you all know, are the world's leaders in numeracy. And she'll be putting those numerical skills to good use by keeping scores for our teams. But who are these teams, Steve? Right. This is what we're going to find out. So first of all, we're going to go to Nick and Zoe. Nick and Zoe, have you got a team name?
We do.
What is it?
Totally planned.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Rainbow Dragons.
Rainbow Dragons, that's good. That'll get you some sympathy from the scorer, who might hear more dings than there really are with a name like that. But Nick,
yeah, I mean, they're also red, the colour of Wales.
Yes. Nick, who are you and what are your book credentials?
Okay.
Tell me.
I'm Nick Coveney. I work for Kobo. We are a retailer who sells books. We sell ebooks and audiobooks. And before that, I used to be an editor and then a person who made digital book stuff.
Amazing. And Kobo sounds like a good name for a dragon. Let's be honest. Where does the name come from?
It's an anagram of book. Like literally.
Steve's very impressed.
I think that's his mind is gone. I can hear
the You could have just made up, it's an ancient, it's actually a dragon from Northumbrian mythology who was known as the most learned and well-read of all of them. You're like, no, it's just book. We tried Ubka. We thought that was a bit shit. We went with Coob. But no, we're going to go with Kobo. Brilliant. Okay, let's find out who Nick's teammate Zoe is. Zoe. Hello, Zoe. What are your book credentials?
My name's Zoe. I am a PhD researcher in 18th century literature, so I hang around with old books on a regular basis. I even brought an old book with me. This is from 1780. Wow. That is how old this book is. It's a proper old.
What is it a book of?
I don't actually like it, but I bought it because it was old and in the charity shop. It's A Sentimental Journey Through France and Italy by Lawrence Stern. Yes, so I spend my time reading old books, largely looking at ideas around consent, and I hunt for these ideas in these old books to try and show that they existed in the mythical days of the past, where people thought differently to us, but maybe not as differently as we think they did.
Brilliant. I look forward to your hour-long show. It's cold outside. Consent through history. Brilliant. That's Nick and Zoe. That reference is only for people who really spend way too much time on Twitter reading the war over It's Cold Outside and whether it is or is not creepy. is brilliant. We've had a backlash. We had a backlash to the backlash. We've had like this postmodern rechurning of the backlash. Historians have come in, but some of them, it turns out, weren't real. Let's go, forget that. Let's go and talk to the other team, Sarah and Elizabeth. Hello. First of all, what's your team name?
We're the unicorns.
Good choice. Good choice. I mean, the dragon and unicorn is a bit, you've gone a bit heraldic for my taste between you, but let's find out who you are. Elizabeth, tell me, who are you and what are your book credentials?
So I have a PhD in medieval manuscript studies. So I have credentials in very old books, but then I decided researching fairy tales was more fun. So now that's what I do. And I spend most of my time reading and writing about talking wolves.
Talking wolves?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
talking animals
good.
in general, but mostly talking wolves.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So journalists, if you're out there and any talking animal stories break on which you want a historical or a literary talking head, Elizabeth is the person to go to. We're going live with this news that in a Bavarian forest, a wolf has been found talking. To get a historical context, we're going live to Elizabeth. Well, let's hope it happens, eh? Fingers crossed. You could launch a media career from there. Let's find out who your teammate is. Hello, Sarah. Hello. Who are you? What are your book credentials?
Hi, I'm Sarah Artt, and I actually mostly spend my time teaching undergraduates about books, but also movies, which is confusing because sometimes we treat them as the same thing, and I spend most of my time going, no, they're two separate things, both equally worthy and important. And in the before times, I used to basically stand up in front of crowds of undergraduates and make them listen to my hot takes on why Call Me By Your Name sounds like porn. And now I mostly just have to do that over the internet, and it's not quite the same. Yeah.
You can't stare them straight in the eyes.
No.
It sounds like porn, you know. It does.
Yeah.
It does. It sounds like
It's
porn.
not as much fun for me or for them, to be honest.
No, of course, but it's sad. I like the fact there are people who can't tell films and books apart. Very much the media criticism version of not knowing your ass from your elbow. They're clearly very different. Like, if just as evidence, anything this film has been made of, the book and the film are different. Just, I won't give examples because, like, I'll give examples and you'll be like, "Those are fucking shit books, Steve. You ill-read buffoon peasant man." Because I'll be like, well, the Mr. Men cartoon series and the Mr. Men. Here's an example, right? Have any of you seen the CBeebies show Bing? It's about a bunny. He just basically breaks things, and he's got like this weird bunny that's smaller than him that might be his dad or might be farming him for his meat. We don't know. It's amazing. It's a great guide to parenting. The books are absolute unreadable garbage. Like, even for books written for 2-year-olds, they're just illiterate nonsense, and I hate them. The TV show is magnificent, not least because they have now, who's that man? Mark Rylance. Is he a famous actor? They've got a very serious, they've got the man from Hilary Mantel's books. Come on. Yes, they've got the man from Wolf Hall, the most man, the actor man, serious. He is the voice of Flop, Bing's dad / meat farmer. And it's just really funny watching anything else with him in ever again in your whole life. Because whenever he talks, you just hear Flop. You know, Sarah, I don't remember things. Mark Rylance we have from Kate Hunter. Mark Rylance. That's the name I said earlier, isn't it? I was right the whole time. Mark Rylance. Yeah. Mark Rylance was the voice of Flop, Bing's dad / meat farmer in Bing. And he mostly says things like, don't worry, I don't think my phone can be fixed, Bing. And you've spilt the milk on the floor, Bing. And then you watch him in some spy film. And when he talks, you're like, why is Flop doing all of this? Right, let's do some work. Enough stupidity, Steve. I've done 3 training sessions and a gig already today. I'm running on pure adrenaline and Guinness. I bought it for St. Patrick's Day to troll the Irish people that I live with by going, here's the high point of your culture, a drink made by British people. Let's move on. So the way this game works... Sorry?
That must have gone well.
No, it's fine. 2 of the Irish people in my house are 2 years old and don't know what I'm talking about. Let's crack on. So the way this game works, I'm going to ask our wonderful friends some questions about books. They're going to answer them, and they're going to be funny. And when they say something funny, you'll hear this noise. And that noise is the Welsh word for give them 1 point. Welsh is a very complicated language. Some things are very condensed, some things are very long. And that's how it's going to work. Jones will keep the scores. We'll have winners. It'll be super fun. Let's show you how it works by doing what we in the quiz industry call round 1. And we're going to start round 1 with Zoe, the most experienced player we've got here, so that she can either show everyone how it's done or show everyone just how low the bar is. Round 1, Zoe McGee, you've just been made Emperor, not Empress, because I don't recognise that title, because you can become an Empress by marrying an Emperor, but you can only become an Emperor by being the actual one in charge. So you are now the gender-neutral term Emperor, which is what we call my daughter, the Emperor. You've been made the Emperor of all books. Which literary genre will you ban forever and why?
Right. So here's the thing. There is no way to get someone more interested in reading a book than to ban it, right? Because everyone knows that banned things are kind of forbidden or sexy or you feel rebellious. So clearly what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and make myself relevant in the world. I'm going to try and give myself the career that the Tory government has stripped away from me by defunding the humanities for the last however long it's been. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ban all the books in my PhD and my to be published work. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take as many of them out of the world as I can. I'm going to leave enough behind that an underground reading network can emerge, but still look like I tried to take them away. And then I'm going to use the ones that I've taken, I'm going to construct a fortress made of these books, right? It's going to have battlements, it's going to have spiral staircases, it's going to have a glass ceiling. And then at a major party, post-lockdown, I'm going to burn this book fortress ceremonially. And it's going to be on all the newspapers, it's going to be everywhere. I'm going to make posters of the various book covers with like a line through them so that everyone is reminded of all the books they're not allowed to read. I'm going to put them in museums so that people can see tantalizing pages of these books. And basically, it's going to be a stealth movement to try and make my life relevant, because then everyone's going to be secretly reading 18th century novels and thinking they're really, really cool.
Amazing. Big round of applause for Zoe McGee there. I have, in the early days of my life, I was a museum curator, and one of the things we did was get books and put them on display. So you've got this book like this thick, and you open it up one page and put it out. So as somebody in the museum, you can't really get anything from it, right? You've got one page open. As far as I could tell, all we were doing was saying to the visitors, we own this, fuck you. We might as well have just had a bit of a gold bar sitting there showing off. That was a wonderful answer. Thank you so much, Zoe. We're going to fly over to the other team now. We're going to go up to Scotland and we're going to visit Sarah Artt. And we're going to say, Sarah, you've just been made Emperor of all books. Which literary genre are you going to ban forever? And why?
Right. So I was thinking about this, and there are some arguments that sort of suggest that genre, as a tool is perhaps waning in its influences. Sorry, Nick, I know that's maybe not what you would like to hear. But what I'd like to propose is a little bit more of a sort of Netflix category, or if you will, a mood. But I would like to ban all work by morose white male cis writers, because I just really can't read anything else about how no one is going to touch your junk. I'm prepared to allow books where someone's junk actually gets touched. But, I just don't want to mark any more essays about these. I don't want to supervise any dissertations about these books. I don't want to read these books. And I know that some people would say that, unfulfilled desire is one of the great literary themes. And to that, I would say, learn how to write a non-cringy sex scene, and then we'll talk.
Incredible, incredible. Such a perfect academic answer. Destroy the premise of the question in the first sentence. Quick 3 points for that. Destroy Nick's business model in the next sentence. Quick point for that. Wonderful. I didn't realize incel was a genre, but apparently it is now. The Catcher in the Rye just causing so much terrible stuff for all of that. Slash, I say the Catcher in the Rye. What I mean, of course, is all poetry causing so much terrible stuff. Listeners who've been here before will know that I love to summarize all poetry by straight men as follows. I do have feelings. Have sex with me and you'll find out about them. That's it. That's all poetry by straight men. That was a great answer from Sarah. Let's fly over to Nick now. Nick, so this might go against the very essence of your being and your ability to claim a salary on a regular basis, but let's find out. Nick, you've just been made emperor of all books. Which literary genre will you ban forever and why?
So there's a lot of controversy about this. It's a bit of a hot topic. I would ban all books which are ghostwritten. So celebrity books that ain't written by the celebrity. Now, everybody knows celebrities are the worst, right? Like they're famous, they're popular, they're loved, except from when they're hated, but then they're still loved. They do terrible things. They get cancelled. They get uncancelled. It's all very Piers Morgan storming off stuff. But they are terrible, terrible people. That's just a fact. They're very successful people, and everybody wants to be them because they have everything. But, you know, whatever they're doing, whether it's like podcast, TV show, whatever, the main thing is they're very, very famous. So they can do nothing wrong. And when they do something wrong, they get more famous. I mean, Arnie Hannah's a great example. Famous for being a bit of a douche in a weird, slightly problematic film based on an even more problematic book, and then comes out with cannibalism as a nice little, you know, yeah, look at that. I'm just going to eat my exes. But, you know, can you consent to being, never mind, we're not going to go there. But celeb books, which are ghostwritten, are the worst because writing a book is really hard. Like, it requires skill. You actually have to put words together that make sense with other words and try and achieve something called storytelling. And celebs can't do it. I refuse to believe that most celeb books have come anywhere near their book. And that's because I used to go into audiobook recording studios with them. The celebrity would start reading it out and go, that didn't happen. Or that wasn't the name. Or I never tagged them. So that's always a bit of a problem. But the biggest thing, and this is a trade secret, not everybody knows this, ghost-written books aren't even written by ghosts. No paranormal. It's false advertising is what it is.
I mean, if they were, though, what a coup. What a coup for the industry if the next celebrity biog is just written by you with a Ouija board and a glass. Like, that would be an incredible, incredible piece of fiction. That's a marvellous answer, Nick. Thank you so much. I mean, we're really getting an eye into Nick's world there as well, which I really enjoyed. But let's bring a little bit of a longer view. Let's go to someone who's got a longer view across literature. We're going to go to Elizabeth and we're going to say, Elizabeth, you've just been made emperor of all books. Congratulations, by the way, quite the promotion. And which literary genre will you ban forever and why?
Well, I'm delighted actually that my fellow teammate and I are in sync about this because I think there's some overlap. I do think it's a very important genre to be thinking about. And what I would specifically ban is the genre of men going into nature and looking at stuff. Because there's a lot of this about. It's got a very long history, and I really think we should ban it. I mean, there's a lot of overselling involved. You know, when you or I go for a walk, we call it going for a walk. When a man with a book contract does it, it's called psychogeography.
Yeah.
And, you know, it goes back further than that. You've got something like words looking the prelude, writing 14 books talk about going up a hill.
Sorry, the biggest praise I can give you is the Welsh national anthem because it's the only thing I've got on my box. But just and then another go back to psychogeography and keep going. I'm just going to keep doing points.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, even with somebody like Thoreau, you know, going back to him, he's not only psychogeographing, but he's also incredibly misleading because he spends all of Walden rhapsodizing about living in the wilderness, and actually his mum was doing his laundry. So yeah, I ban all of it.
Please do. I did a talk once, a thing, And the man before me was supposed to do 10 minutes and he did half an hour. So by the time I was on, everyone had left. And he'd written a book about a bit of scrub at the end of his garden in the poshest bit of Northumberland. And he was like, oh, I moved away from North London to Northumberland. Now I'm studying. And that was it. Half an hour of just being like, I saw a fox. It's not a transcendent moment, mate. I see a fox every day. When I look in the mirror, boom. Right. Let's find out how everybody is doing after that incredible first round in which I just had to almost give up existing in the middle of Elizabeth's answer because I was so pleased with it. Wait, we've got some suggestions from the listeners. Can I ban self-help books written by people born into, well, yes. I do training sessions all the time on like how to be more successful and effective. And I always say at the beginning, by the way, it's for science researchers. I always say, by the way, if your parents are trustees of the Wellcome Trust, you don't need to be on this training. Take the rest of the day off. Let's find out how the scores are going. Jones, over there in Wales, Jones.
Well,
How are the
obviously,
scores? Hey,
obviously
1
both
second,
teams-
Jones. Watch this. In order to give more Jones. Now, Jones, how are the scores?
Well, obviously, both teams are have somewhat of an advantage in that unicorns are called Sarah and Elizabeth, which are both my names. Great choices. But we've got rainbow dragons who are dragons. So the scores are actually very close. We've currently got the unicorns on 24.
Oh, it's a good score.
But the rainbow dragons just slightly ahead on Dydig Pimp.
Yes! Numbers that end in pimp. It's the Welsh. It's the joy of Welsh. It's the numbers that end in pimp. We've never done just solo Jones for the scores before. I quite liked it. I thought it added gravitas. How did you feel, Sarah?
It was a lot of my face.
Let's crack on to round two. Round two is the Great Lists of Books round. I'm going to give our teams the title of a PowerPoint slide. They're going to give me bullet points that will be on the PowerPoint slide if they were using that PowerPoint slide in their presentation. Teams, shout in whenever you've got a funny one. Try not to talk over each other. Try not to leave really long gaps between each other. Now this is really complicated and you're going to feel socially awkward the whole way through. Your first slide is Christmas cash-in book titles for 2021.
Regency Kama Sutra, bringing Bridgerton to the bedroom.
A Christmas Karen.
For the 2020s, 1001 Things to Do with Llewellyn Yeast.
Rudolph Scott, the Red-Nosed Lethal Strain Deer.
Lady Chatterley's Glover, a PPE romance.
So good.
Strong Virgo lead, what your Netflix queue says about your star sign.
101 TikTok tips from the sourdough that grew in your granny's kitchen.
Catch Me in the Canal, a memoir from the Ever Given.
The sequel to Eat, Pray, Love, Hands, Face, Space.
Why doesn't Megan like me anymore? By Random Gammon.
Murdering Donald Trump, a memoir.
The Cat of the Baskinvilles, and for younger readers, The Tiger Who Had Me for Tea.
I Spy
Elizabeth.
with Dominic Cummings.
The Liar,
more
the
friends?
Snitch, and the War Drone.
I mean, it's a bit clever, but it gets the point. I have to kind of normally on a normal one, something that clever, I wouldn't give it a point. But I know the books one, the IQ level of the competitors, it's a lot higher than the normal science ones. So I've got to be a bit more lenient with the kind of Radio 4 humour, the kind of jokes where you go, yes, that is clever.
101 hobbies you promised to take up in lockdown and how to avoid actually having to do them.
This week, one of my friends took up sourdough by accident when she made loads of Play-Doh for her kids and forgot to put salt in it. And 4 days later, the Tupperware it was in had gone. So she just cooked it and it made a really nice loaf of, she called it found bread. Let's move on to our second PowerPoint slide. Here we go. This is opening sentences that guarantee that your book will be a bestseller.
And so the littlest gammon, who was also a chicken, turned to the snowflake and said, "Walkie, walkie, walk, walk."
That's Donald Trump Jr.'s new book, surely, word for word.
We met each other snorting lines off the heir to the throne's occasional table.
Yeah, already we know that Cumberbatch will be in the adaptation of that one. Keep them coming.
Mrs. Dalloway said she'd buy the flowers herself, but actually she stole them, and that's how she became a criminal mastermind.
Yeah, get into the plot quick. I like it.
It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune is definitely up to something shady, and you should run for the hills.
Sure, sex is great, but have you tried baking?
Sorry, Sarah, do that one again, and then we're going to go to Nick, and then we'll go to Elizabeth, because everyone was keen, so I have to do traffic control now. Sarah.
Sure, sex is great, but have you tried baking?
In this how-to guide on how to achieve and preserve institutional racism, we will teach you how to deflect from any and all criticism with poise and panache. Brackets, recollections may vary.
Elizabeth.
Last night I dreamed I went to Barnard Castle again.
Every unhappy family is unhappy in their own way. And here are my 10 top tips for avoiding yours.
And they longed for a simpler time when chaos was typified by an ugly MP with a bacon sarnie.
This is the story of how we redistributed Jeff Bezos's accumulated wealth.
As Gregor Samsa awoke one morning, he once again rejoiced in his decision not to take the job in pest control.
And that's what happens when you don't. And that's what happens when you don't invite the right fairies to your wedding, said Meghan to Harry.
Wonderful answers. I'm sad that none of you went for "I ate a salad and then," just because there's a little board outside my local off license that says booze, because no good story starts with someone eating a salad. So I want us all, whatever story you're reading, when you get the book, pick it up. And then when you get to chapter 1 at the beginning, just write "someone ate a salad and then," and then every good story will start with someone eating a salad. We got one more for this one, and it is my favourite one ever. It's back from 6 months ago. Backhanded compliments for the other team.
I mean, I'd just like to say that I was really nervous about doing this show, but I'm so glad we got you as our opponents.
Look how well behaved they all are, Sarah. They won't do it.
It's largely because with your level of competence, it's only a matter of time before you're handed a lucrative government contract.
I was really, really worried that I'd come on here and there'd be like other people from the book industry. Like I thought the big A was going to be here, either of the big A's, but they're not. So thanks. I feel welcome.
Are you not one of the big A's, Artt?
I doubt it.
I don't know what he means. Keep them coming. Backhanded compliments for the other team.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to think of some reading material for the other team. So I wanted to recommend, for instance, Cinderella for people who are smutty and always late.
You know, I was really inspired by the way you committed to that last answer. It made me understand why participation prizes were invented.
I don't think Zoe has a back on her hand. This is pretty forehandy.
I mean,
keep them coming. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I kind of wanted to recommend another book, Rapunzel, for all your lockdown hairstyling.
Yeah, I mean, hair bands.
Another point on
for
that
those
one.
of us who can't be bothered to dye our hair at home.
Right, I'm going to stop this before people start firing missiles at each other's homes. I love doing that one. Did you see Sarah do a little air fist? Right, let's find out after all of that. Woof! Flippin' heck. Well, that's good. Nick will have to commission everybody's next audiobook. I mean, you could sell a lot. Have you heard the voices of all of these people? You could sell a lot of copies of ASMR audiobooks. Is that a genre? You can buy the audiobook or you can buy the ASMR audiobook. It's the same book, but read right into your ear. And the author reminds you that they're your friend over and over again. I am your friend. And when he woke up, he was... Right, I'll stop doing that because it's creepy as shit.
Oh, I mean, Steve, do you have a tip menu? Is there like an OnlyFans for that? Because
there is... On me and Sarah's world famous Dungeons and Dragons podcast, Chaotic Adequate, there is a special episode where I recorded a Valentine's date with one of the characters, and he's a monk who worships the god of calm, and his voice is like this, and he always says, "Oh, I realize you might find all of this a bit too stimulating." So, and there's half an hour of him chatting to you on your Valentine's Day date if you want to go and download that episode.
Excellent.
It's I got a lot of tweets saying that's half of an hour of my life I'm not getting back. Let's go and find out how the scores are after that round. Sarah Jones, what is happening in the land of Wales?
Well, I wouldn't know because I'm in London, but it's bad news for the unicorns because the gap has enlarged somewhat while they are on Treating now.
39. This for new listeners, Jones only knows odd numbers in Welsh and only knows even numbers in English. It's to do with the education system.
But Rainbow Dragons are absolutely storming ahead on 46.
46, a good solid round English. 46, brilliant. Right, let's move on to round 3. Round 3, we're going to go in the reverse order that we went in round 1, which means I need to remember what the order was in round 1, which means it's Elizabeth. Is that right? That is right. Yes. So here's the question for round 3, Elizabeth. What is the greatest sentence ever written and why?
So my candidate would be the opening sentence of one of the Grimm's fairy tales, which for some strange reason doesn't appear in many anthologies. And it goes like this. Once upon a time, a mouse, a bird, and a sausage formed a partnership. They kept house together, and for a long time they lived in peace and prosperity, acquiring many possessions. So I think this sentence is amazing for several reasons. Firstly, it's a very positive relationship model. Like, it brings these 3 very different characters together and they live in peace and harmony. So I think that's a wonderful message. And we have very few stories about sentient sausages in general. So I think it's great that there's more of that out there. It's really compelling. It's got a real sense of mystery. I mean, why don't we have talking sausages anymore? Were they so delicious that they all got eaten? And how did they move about? Did they bounce along like a pogo stick, or did they have like little centipede legs? You know, there's so many questions. And finally, how did they acquire so many possessions? So I think the sentence has it all.
Amazing, incredible. I mean, the combination of the deep academic understanding of being able to go, it's actually not in most editions, and a talking sausage. Like, it's going to be hard to beat those two going together, but we'll find out. We'll find out if they can be beaten. We're going to fly over to Nick Coveney over in London's fashionable London, and we're going to find out. Nick, what is the greatest sentence ever written and why?
For me, it would be from the infamous vampy slag Lucy Westenra from Dracula. And the line itself is, why can't they let a girl marry 3 men, or as many as want her, and save all this trouble? Now, there's lots of great things to love about Lucy. She's buxom, she's sassy, she's she's not a bit of a slag, she's a total slag. She's the cat slater of Victorian England. She is determined to get as many husbands in her as want her. She loves them all, whether they're American, whether they're psychoanalyzing fly men. She wants men, but only if they want her. She's not actually that bothered about her views, because she doesn't have many views, because she's a caricature written by Bram Stoker. She's not really a fully fledged woman, but she is a schlag. And I love that about her.
Incredible. Great answer. Great answer. Wonderful and beautiful. And we've got lots of good stuff to come. So I'm going to keep moving on, which means next I'm going to Sarah. Sarah, tell me all the way up there in wonderful Scotland, the place where Scotch and OK politics come from. What is the greatest sentence ever written and why?
Well, I do feel that it's a hard act to follow after Nick because Lucy Westenra is such a cock destroyer. But I'm going to take a shot. So I've got like a two-part kind of thing happening. So the greatest sentence ever written is by Colette, and it's from her 1920 novel Chérie. And so this is the sentence. L'hommage silencieux des femmes le suivait. Les plus candides lui dédiaient cette stupeur passagère qu'elles ne peuvent ni feindre ni dissimuler. And the English translation is, the eyes of women followed his progress with silent homage, the more candid among them, bestowing that passing stupefaction which can be neither feigned nor hidden. Obviously, I've picked this because it is incredibly thirsty, and Colette is kind of one of the greatest for this. But it's also a really incredible example of what we would now really term the female gaze, because it's about women looking at men in the street. And if that is not sufficient, I would say one of the greatest sentences I read last year was "The night is young and I have so much cocaine in my bra," which is from Eliza Clark's Boy Parts, one of the most terrifying books I read last year.
Amazing. So wonderful to have a woman writing about just the exact torment that I suffer all the time, every time I walk down the street, just being objectified. Just, you wouldn't believe the amount of street harassment I suffer. Last year, a woman walked up to me in the street and she said, "I like your glasses." It was just ridiculous. It shouldn't be allowed, this level of... I totally empathise with everybody. That was an incredible answer. And I realise as I do that joke, you have to actually know that I'm an all right human to find it funny. Otherwise, I sound like a monster. But there we go. Sometimes that's the risks you take with comedy. Beautiful. Right, let's fly over to Zoe. Zoe, tell me, what is the greatest sentence ever written and why?
Well, I kind of thought about this in maybe a deconstructionist way. I kind of wanted to take it out of the book proper and more into like the whole world. I was thinking, what is the best sentence? Well, one sentence, it's 2 words, it's 3 letters. It's I do. This is an incredibly efficient sentence. It doesn't need to kind of ramble on and on for a million clauses, but it's incredibly powerful. It's how you get married, and that's specifically because you're making this promise in the present tense. Fun fact, that the reason it's the wedding sentence is it's because of its tense. I mean, in what other sentence is the tense that important? Nobody cares about tenses other than that. It's also how you make an oath in court. You promise to tell the truth. You say, "I do swear to do all that stuff." You just don't add all the rest of it. So like that's like magic words that mean what I'm saying is completely true. Like there's no other way of guaranteeing to people that like they can definitely trust what you say. And finally, and I think this is probably the most important thing about this sentence, is that when we get out of this lockdown, when we're finally allowed back into pubs and seeing other people, and we've left our phone charger at home and our phone battery is on empty and we're panicked, and we turn around and we say, "Who's got a phone charger?" The one sentence we want to hear floating out from the rest of your pub groups is, "I do."
Marvellous. Incredible.
Beautiful. Lucy is right. The second best one is that men writing women description of a female character as being there she was, short skirt, 2 boobs and a face.
Important to remember that the nipples are the eyes of the face.
The eyes of the face, not even of the soul, of the face. That was wonderful. Thank you for all those lovely answers. I don't know what you've all been telling me. No, it's fine. I've been watching the YouTube chat and you've all been talking in the private chat. We've got one more round to go to separate the wheat from the chaff here. I'm glad none of you went for the first word of Beowulf. You would have lost a lot of points for your sheer pretentiousness. Some viewers now are like, "Great joke, Steve. What?" And some of you are like, "Fuck off, posh boy." You're quite right. Let's fly over now to Jones the Maths. Jones, tell me. Oh, Sarah, by the way, can you just redo the line that you read, but just right into your microphone in French and whisper it? No, don't. That's fine. Let's just for some. This will be on YouTube, and people might be like, it might be on a forum somewhere with a link that says go straight to 4813. Let's go over to Jones the maths. Jones, tell me what are them numbers doing?
Well, as always, we've got everybody else in the world on 0. I mean,
Yes.
one of these days, everybody else is going to really have to start pulling their weight.
But neither you nor me nor the nation of Wales have scored any points yet.
No, not this time.
Rare.
Yeah. So in second place, we've got Unicorns on Pimp Dig Scythe.
That's a big score after 3 rounds. You might be in second, but that would have beaten a lot of thicker teams.
But Rainbow Dragons absolutely storming ahead. The gap has widened even further because they're on Chwech Dig Scythe.
10-point gap going into the last round. It's all to play for. If I knew which team was which, I would definitely be scoring them less. But genuinely, I don't know which team is which. I wasn't concentrating at that point. There's a lot of like paint and stuff in here. It's a heady environment, you know. Let's go on to our final round. Now, listeners will know our final round is always it's always a playground classic. It's always Snog, Marry, Kill. Or who would win in a fight, or would you rather? So today I've actually pushed 2 of those together. Who would you rather fight? And I'm going to ask each of our players who they would rather fight. And they've got 2 to choose from, and they have to fight one of them. And it is a proper physical fight. It's not like a marketplace of ideas debate. It's a proper fisticuffs or weapons. It's up to you whether you bring weapons. We're going to go, first of all, to Nick. We're going to start with a GCSE classic from Nick. Like, let's really ground everybody in something that they know and love. Nick, right. Who would you rather fight, Romeo or Juliet?
Okay, I would rather fight Juliet because you can just tell that she's a plastic of Verona, right? Her breasts can always tell when it's raining. If that dagger hadn't gotten her, it probably would have been a yellow bus at some point. Yeah. I'm sure most of the citizens of Verona were very tired of Juliet being on her balcony, being like serenaded and all that crap. But the other thing is, at least with Juliet, there would be a proper cat fight. Like, she would be vicious. It would be bloody. It would be everything. Whereas Romeo would just get his best mate to come along and be like, oh no, I can't fight you because kinsmanship. I can't do this. And then you'd fight, and then he'd stab you in the back when you're in the middle of a fight with his mate.
Yeah. Absolutely. Although, Sarah, can we take 1 point off Nick? Because the balcony isn't actually in the original text. This is what I know from many years of running books-based comedy shows and having experts on Shakespeare and Verona itself standing on stage. The balcony is a later invention. It's not. There's a lot of Nick fans. There's a lot of Nick fans out there. Shakespeare lols. It doesn't say here which of those 5 people Sasha Coward is, which is I'd quite like. Very misleading. Don't use that as your dating photo, Sasha. Let's. Can we take a point off Steve for balcony-based grandstanding? No. Can I have a point for random audience members trying to take against me for my incredible knowledge? Like, they're just jealous about the Beowulf joke from earlier because they didn't get it. It's the people who didn't get the Beowulf joke being like, I hate Steve, he's always showing off how clever he is. Yeah, I can't help it because that's how clever I am. I haven't even read Beowulf. I listened to a podcast about it. Well, I say that. I made a podcast about it where I hadn't read it. Let's go on. Right, that was Nick. We're going to go over to the other team now. And we're going to say that's Nick's team. So that's that team. Right, we're going to Elizabeth. Tell me, Elizabeth, would you rather fight the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood or the witch from Hansel and Gretel?
So I thought a lot about this, and I think I definitely choose the wolf because the story all suggests is quite stupid, and there's quite a lot of different techniques you can try. Maybe the best one of which is sausage water. So there's a little known sequel to Little Red Riding Hood where Little Red and the grandmother team up to defeat the wolf. They've faced him once before, and now they're prepared. So they put some water that sausage has been boiled in a trough under the house roof, and the wolf climbs on the roof, loses his balance, falls in and drowns. So I think this technique would work. I also think that attacking witches is kind of unreasonable as a feminist, so I'd really want to co-opt her as an ally. So, I think that she's got cooking skills. She could help, maybe not she normally does gingerbread, not sausages, but she could branch out a bit. So all in all, I think the wolf is the best bet.
And just an extra point for Elizabeth there for bringing the idea of boiling sausages into our culinary life.
Yeah, I mean, I like how it's really thrifty as well. Like, it's not, they don't actually try to tempt with actual sausages. It's like just the water in which the sausages has been boiled. Like, they keep the sausages for themselves.
The sausage stock, as it were.
Yeah,
that they
exactly.
make wolf soup out of.
Yeah. Then you cook the wolf. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was, you've got a lot of fans out there. A lot of fans.
Good.
Let's move over to our third person we go to. There's Zoe. Going back to incel fiction a little bit here. Zoe, who would you rather fight? Jay Gatsby or Holden Caulfield?
Well, my first thought was about winning, and I realised I could take either of these people in a fight. So my second thought was which would be most fun to fight. Now, Holden Caulfield loses every fight he's in that book. That seems too easy. I did consider, he has a ballroom dancing scene where he complains that women can't hold conversation while dancing. So I was like, I could take him to a university competition where nobody can dodge anybody else and just let someone mow him down with a quickstep. But then I thought, no, you know what's going to be much more fun? It's fighting Jay Gatsby, because he's dead by the end of the novel, which means I'd be fighting a zombie. That's inherently cooler. And so what I thought is this would be like a grand cinematic fight, because I would stage this fight in like a really busy area of town, because every time the traffic lights went off, we'd be really distracted by all of the green light. And this would enable me to use the ultimate weapon of London traffic to mow him down in like drone film cinematic masterpiece.
Incredible. Just using his greatest weakness, a green light, against him. That's how you deal with Gatsby. Although in my head now, because Gatsby is, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio, and so is the Revenant, who did come back from the dead as a zombie and attack people. In my head now, these are the same character. And Jay Gatsby himself is a stumbling around trapper who was previously attacked by a bear. Right, it's all on the line now. This is the final answer in the entire competition. This is going to decide the winner. No pressure is on Sarah at all as we go to Sarah and we say, great figures of the literary world, who would you rather fight? Dorothy Gale from The Wizard of Oz or Anne Frank?
I mean, obviously, I didn't want to get you kicked off YouTube. So, of course, I think I would have to fight Dorothy Gale. But I am pretty sure that I could take her because, like so many people on lockdown, I have not skipped leg day. So I think my abilities would kind of depend on whether we were in Oz or in Kansas. So if we were in Oz, I would really have to think about how I would defeat her companions. That would probably involve magic or setting someone on fire. Or I would have to reveal my true nature as Ursula the Sea Witch. It's a crossover, just go with it. And if we were in Kansas, then I would probably just go in with some very traditional hair pulling, maybe some manure throwing, with the ultimate goal of just stealing her shoes and therefore destroying her.
Incredible. And that should have bought us just enough time for Sarah to have counted all the little ticks on the bit of paper. There's going to be some great big build-up now, wait. Pressure is on the teams. Tell me, Sarah Jones, for these four incredible fighters, these literary Lancelots, these books barbarians. I'm just thinking of things that are to do with fighting. What are the scores?
Well, obviously, in last place, we've got me for answering that Anne Frank question.
There's an extra point for you to lift you back up to 0.
And then in
Sunlight. Do you think The Diary of Anne Frank is a vampire book?
No, I don't really want to dig myself any deeper into this. In fourth place, we've got everybody else in the world after me on 0 still. In third place, we've got Steve Cross on 1 point.
Yes, for knowing the first world of Beowulf.
In second place, we've got the unicorns. It was too big a gap for them to concede, but they have closed the gap slightly because they are on 78.
I mean, they did tremendously well there, given that they did have the Anne Frank question.
But the winners here, absolutely storming it today. Rainbow Dragons are on 86.
Oh, that's a big score. It would have been hard to beat that. I'm sorry, Elizabeth and Sarah. I'm sorry I couldn't get you weaker opposition. Winners, Nick and Zoe, have you got any words of advice, either for the losers or for the rest of humanity out there watching?
Books are
Read
cool.
more. Books are cool.
That's cool. Or in Nick's case, have other people read you books more.
Yeah, that's also good.
And panelists, if any of you are available to read audiobooks by celebrities who are too thick to read their own books, and you can do a good, I don't even know who celebrities are. You do a good one of Little Mix. Why not get in contact with Nick? Incredible game. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to all of our players for taking part. Thank you to Jones the Maths for being able to add up. Do come and see us. Not next week. There's no show next week because there's a Good Friday. Seems like you'll just be like, if we did a quiz, it would just be people stuffing chocolate in their faces, and that wouldn't work. So there's none next week, but there is one on the 9th. We are doing food on the 9th, an all food themed panel show. And let me tell you who I've got, because it's almost as good as today. For next week's show, I have got Olivia Potts, the Spectator's retro food columnist. I've got Suhail Patel, aka Roadman Ramsey, Britain's #1 street croissant maker. I don't really understand his brand. I've got Helen Zaltzman, Britain's most famous podcaster and a food aficionado who's married to a psychopath. And I've got Lucas Oakley, one of the founders of Mob Kitchen, which is very gangster, I think. And they're going to be answering stupid questions like this about kebabs and stuff instead of about, Anne Frank. Thank you all for playing. Thank you all for coming. Everybody's beautiful and wonderful. And let's all get together when all of this stops and just have better lives. Look after yourselves, friends. Would you like to say goodbye, lovely guests?
Bye.
Bye.
Can we do this for museums, please? Yeah, anytime you want. Bye.